Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Gulshan Kumar Bansal, Professor in Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Drug Research in Punjabi University, Patiala. Today we are going to discuss about a module, Medical Nanobiotechnology and Nano Analytics, Analysis of Nanoscience-based Materials under paper Nanobiotechnology. In this module, we are discussing about the different types of analytical techniques available for the nanomaterials. The analysis of nanoscience-based material is more challenging than the analysis of any other biomolecule or any other molecule for that matter because of a strong dependence of organoleptic properties of nanomaterials on their size and shape rather than on their chemical compositions. So different techniques are required for their qualitative and quantitative analysis. The selection of any appropriate analytical method for this purpose is governed by the composition and size of the nanomaterial, sample matrix, and information required. So in the objective of this module is to provide a thorough insight into the different analytical techniques with emphasis on its principle, feature, and applications for qualitative as well as quantitative analysis of different types of nanomaterials used in different sciences. Both qualitative and quantitative analytical methods are required for comprehensive analysis of nanomaterials to establish their identity and characteristics. Characteristics like size, shape, distribution, aggregation, and as well as to determine their concentration for dose calculations. The quantitative methods should be capable of quantifying the nanomaterials with a sensitivity limit at least an order of magnitude lower than the hygienic standards. Now, hygienic standards is defined as the minimum qualitative and quantitative attributes of a material that are not harmful to a specific living system when exposed to it. These standards vary from each type of living system depending upon their biological makeup, age, size, weight, and etc. The analytical methods are also highly desirable to be capable of reliably distinguish between the nanomaterials and their chemical analogues as macroscopic dispersions. Nanoanalytics means the analytical methods which are used for analysis of nanomaterials. There are the different types of nanoanalytical methods based upon the principles behind their application. Like optical methods which use light, so they are further classified into two categories, microscopic and spectroscopic. In microscopic methods, we use electrons or the light, and the microscopic parameters of the material are analyzed. The examples include confocal microscopy, scanning electron microscopy, transmission electron microscopy, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, and atomic force microscopy. The second is a spectroscopic technique which involves the use of light like UV, IR, radio frequencies or so on, and the different types of spectroscopic techniques include scattering spectroscopy, you can say nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, then we have X-ray diffraction, X-ray fluorescence, and X-ray absorbance spectroscopies. The other kind of methods are separation methods in which the nanomaterials are separated from the sample. These include filtration and centrifugation, chromatography, and electrophoresis. Third type is a mass spectrometry. It is a separate class in which the mass of the nanomaterial is analyzed, means the nanomaterials are analyzed on the basis of their mass or mass fragmentation pattern. The immunochemical methods, they are based upon the specific reactions between the nanomaterials and some immunological agents or some chemical agents, so that to separate them and to analyze them through the suitable scanning technique. Another is a particle counting method in which the nanoparticles are counted in a particular sample. So coming to first the optical methods, and in the first microscopic method is a confocal microscopy. Now in this, a laser beam is focused at a pinpoint on a plane in the sample so that the other planes in the sample become out of focus. The incident beam causes the sample to fluoresce. The emitted light creates an image at that focal point of the sample. The other part of the sample appears blurred. In similar way, the images are created at other focal points in the same plane as well as on the other planes. These images are combined to create a three-dimensional image of the sample. So this technique allows analysis of fluorescent labeled thick specimens without any physical sectioning. Its advantage is the improved resolution, imaging of live cells as well as fixed cells, and escape from preparation of physical sections of the specimen. However, its limitation is that only fluorescent samples can be analyzed by this method. So here is shown a difference between the resolution of a fluorescent microscope and a confocal microscope. The kidney cells, they are much resolved with a confocal spectroscopy, the down, and similarly intestinal cells, the confocal image is much improved in comparison to the fluorescent image. So this is another example of confocal microscopy in which we are seeing the confocal images of galactose, glucose and mannose functionalized silver nanoparticles in the cells, which are shown in the red. The second type of microscopic method is electron microscopy. Now these are used for visualization of engineered nanomaterials, and these methods afford a resolution of up to sub-nanometer range. The principle is that when a very high energy beam of electron is incident on a very thin sample, the electrons are scattered into an image, a diffraction pattern, or a nano analytical spectrum. These methods provide direct information about the surface structure of the analyte, local crystal structure, direct map of atomic arrangements in the molecule, or a very high resolution image depending upon the mode of operation. Now here, as seen in the picture, the electrons, which electrons are detected after they are incident on the sample, the different type of electron microscopies are derived. Like a transmission electron microscopy, when the transmitted electrons are detected, scanning electron microscopy when the secondary electrons are detected. Similarly, the different informations are provided by the reflected beams, by the transmitted beams, depending upon their size of the particles. So this is an image of gold nanoparticles on a polystyrene sphere, and this is determined through electron microscope. So it is clearly showing the small white colored dots on a black ball. The black ball is a polystyrene sphere, and the white dots, they are gold nanoparticles. So this is a microscopic image of the carbon nanoparticles with graphene branches. So this is the clarity or the resolution of the electron microscope, which is exploited for analysis of various nanoparticles. So this is another image of mesoporous silica nanoparticles of varied sized images through TEM and SEM. And the nanoparticles are very clearly visible, their shape and size are very clearly visible through the microscopic methods. A sample of core shell nanoparticle imaged through scanning transmission electron microscope, we call it STEM, and energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, we call it EDX, is shown here, and the colors images show the precise location of different elements in the particles. So here we see that green color is for platinum, yellow color is for ruthenium, and W is for tungsten, and blue is for titanium. So the electron microscope and this technique can clearly recognize the different types of metals, and when all these metals were mixed in one nanoparticle and they were be seen clearly, the tungsten and the titanium were concentrated in the center of the nanoparticle, whereas the platinum and ruthenium, they were towards the periphery of the nanoparticle. Atomic force microscopy is another microscopic method which is very powerful and is rapidly developing for investigation of nano-sized objects, and it belongs to the scanning probe microscopy family. Now, atomic force microscope is actually comprised of a cantilever tip assembly that raster scans across the sample surface using a piezoelectric tube controlled by a computer. The cantilever tip tapers to a very sharp point, typically less than 10 nanometer radius of curvature, as shown in the figure. The deflection of the cantilever is monitored using an optical detection system in the form of a laser that reflects off the back of the cantilever and onto the 4-quadrant photodiode. A feedback loop maintains a constant tip samples force. This can be done by operating in contact mode, where a constant cantilever deflection is maintained, or in intermittent contact mode, where the cantilever is oscillated near resonance or constant amplitude is maintained. The atomic force microscopy is also capable of force spectroscopic measurements. And this technique gives a topological image of surfaces with a nanoscale resolution. They can be operated under physiologically relevant conditions. The elasticity of cells and other biochemical properties are also determined, and it also provides information about single molecular interactions and the force required to unfold the proteins. So this is an image of particles. Now these particles are ozone-loaded and succinyl chitosan nanoparticles. We can see here that the yellow colored nanoparticles are clearly visible over the surface. Now this slide shows another application of atomic force microscopy, which shows the cellular uptake process of ozone and succinyl carbon nanoparticle. The surface morphology of HepG2 cells was investigated by the instrument without any treatment as well as with the treatment. Now on the upper figure, we can see that the surface is quite plain, and on the lower image we can say that the surface is having some gyri. So this suggests that the particles are taken up by the cells by endocytosis. Coming to the second type of optical methods, we call them spectroscopic methods, in which we study the interaction of light with the material. These techniques, spectroscopic techniques, basically broadly classified into 3 categories. One is the dynamic laser light scattering, which is based upon the principle of scattering of light. It is widely used to determine particle size and aggregation degrees in suspensions. It gives information on the particle size only, and it can be applied to determine the size of nanoparticles in the range of 10 to 100 nanometers. So some of the examples where this DLS technique is used include magnetite and nanoparticle in the foodstuff, and characterization of aggregates of various nanoparticles like aluminium, titanium, silicon, silver, and copper nanoparticles. The major drawback of this technique is the interference caused by impurities like dust particles. Small angle neutron scattering is another type of scattering technique which is applicable to both solid and liquid samples. Small angle X-ray scattering is also a scattering technique which is suitable for characterization of liquid and solid structures of size in the nanometer range. And the other techniques include Raman light scattering and laser-induced fluorescence. The other 2 types of spectroscopic techniques are the nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy and X-ray spectroscopic methods. Nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy works on the principle of a magnet, means every nucleus behaves as a magnet, so radio frequency is used to detect the different type of nanoparticles present in it. And X-ray spectroscopic methods, they are based upon the use of X-rays as a light which is incident on the sample, and there is an interaction between the X-rays and the nanoparticles. So based upon what type of light is determined, it can be X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, X-ray diffraction spectroscopy, or X-ray absorbance spectroscopy. Now these analysis and NMR or X-ray, they allow selective, qualitative as well as quantitative information of various types of nanoparticles. Coming to the separation methods, now chromatography is a versatile technique. So a separation method is actually a method that separates the components in a mixture on the basis of their differential affinities for a mobile phase and a stationary phase. And this method is called as chromatography. So as we can see in the figure that there are two forces which are acting on the solute when it is moving through the mobile phase over a stationary phase. F2 is the forward force which is applied by the mobile phase, whereas F1 is the retarding force which is applied by the stationary phase. So this retarding force is because of the frictional force, because of the dipolar interactions or with the stationary phase. Now, among the different chromatography techniques, size-exclusion chromatography is the best known and most well-developed method for the separation of various particles according to their sizes. Columns for size-exclusion chromatography are packed with porous beads as the stationary phase. The greater the size of the particles, the smaller the number of pores of the stationary phase that are accessible for their penetration, and hence shorter is the retention time in the column. This method has been used to study metallic nanoparticles, quantum dots, single-walled carbon nanotubes, and polystyrene particles. Size-exclusion chromatography can be advantageously combined with various detection methods that are able to estimate the properties of the particles present in particular size fractions, for example, small angle laser light scattering. The chromatography, it works on the different principles. So based upon their principles, based upon their mechanism of separations, chromatography can be classified as a partition chromatography. It can be called as adsorption chromatography. It can be ion exchange chromatography. It can be size exclusion chromatography and affinity chromatography. Now, out of these, size exclusion and affinity chromatography are the most commonly used, although the adsorption chromatography is also used for the analysis of fullerenes. So this is showing how size exclusion chromatography works, and you see here the large proteins and the small proteins are loaded over a column, and when it is eluted with a suitable mobile phase, the small proteins, they get entangled into the network of the pores, whereas the large particles, they find their space and they move through it. So large particles come first and the small particles, they are left behind. So this way the separation is achieved. Affinity chromatography is another type of chromatography which is used for the separation of nanoparticles. Now it is based upon the antigen-antibody reactions. So the nanoparticles which are coated with a particular antibody, they can be separated from some samples by due to their interactions with a specific antigen. So the sample is passed through a column which is containing a specific antigen for the antibody on the nanoparticles. The antigen-antibody reactions occur. The rest of the sample components are eluted, and thereafter the binding is reversed with the help of alteration in pH, and the nanoparticles with the required antibodies are separated. So it can be used as a purification technique or nanoparticles. A third type of chromatography is hydrodynamic chromatography, which is also used for analysis of nanoparticles or nanomaterials. Unlike size exclusion chromatography, in case of hydrodynamic chromatography, the column is filled with non-porous beads, for example, glass, quartz, and polystyrene. The beads form channels in which the particles are fractionated under the action of flow velocity field gradient in the near wall layer of the stationary phase. When there is a near wall gradient of the liquid flow velocity, particles are separated according to their hydrodynamic radii. The larger particles are eluted faster than the smaller particles. The use of non-porous beads substantially decreases the possibility of interactions of nanoparticles with the stationary phase as compared to the porous phases. So this eliminates the problem of tailing or fronting in the peaks. The modern columns of hydrodynamic chromatography are suitable for fractionating particles of various nature in the range of sizes from 5 to 1200 nanometers. The separation efficiency in this method depends on the column length, whereas in size-exclusion chromatography, the pore size distribution plays a crucial role. Owing to the broader range of size distribution in the case of hydrodynamic chromatography, it is possible to fractionate diverse nanoparticles and their aggregates in various media. The detection of hydrodynamic chromatography can be accomplished by means of fluorescence, ultraviolet or other detectors. These have been used to detect or quantify fluorescent nanoparticles, natural colloids and biopolymers. So we said that in hydrodynamic chromatography, the larger particles are eluted first and the smaller particles are eluted later on, because the larger particles, they experience more drag due to the solvent than the smaller particle. So it is more accessible, so it is dragged first and it elutes first. Now this is another practical example of hydrodynamic chromatography in which the gold nanoparticles are separated on size-exclusion chromatography as well as hydrodynamic chromatography, and the eluent was detected with the inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometric analysis, and the results were comparable, and in fact they were more sensitive with the hydrodynamic chromatography. The reverse phase high performance liquid chromatography is also nowadays increasingly used in the determination of nanoparticles. It works on the principle of adsorption. The solute is adsorbed, so here the solute is nanoparticle. It is adsorbed onto a solid surface, we call it stationary phase. So this method is especially convenient for quantitative determination of fullerenes in biological samples because they are lipophilic in nature. The fullerene peak is recorded by the time of flight detector or by the UV absorption detector because of their characteristic wavelength lies in the range of 324 to 340. Electrophoresis is another type of separation method which separates the analytes in a complex mixture on the basis of their molecular size, shape and net charge. Separation of the charged molecule is achieved due to their migration at differential speeds through the medium under an applied electric field towards the oppositely charged electrodes. The molecules with a positive charge move towards the cathode and those with a negatively charge move towards the anode. And the migration rate is influenced by three characteristics of the molecules, that is a mass, size and shape and net charge. The molecules with a higher molecular move slower, while molecules with a smaller molecular weight, they move faster. The electrophoresis is one of the widely used technique in molecular biochemistry, microbiology, biomedical research, but its application in separation of nanoparticles in complex biological matrices are still under development, though some researchers have reported uh, separation of silicon dioxide nanoparticles as well as of the gold nanoparticles from aqueous solutions. So here is shown an application of electrophoresis experiment. Genshe et al. Have performed electrophoretic isolation of discrete gold nanoparticles and single-stranded DNA conjugates. By adjusting the DNA gold ratio, they were able to control the average number of DNA strands per article, but there would always be distribution of oligonucleotide present. Thus, it was necessary to have a technique for separation and isolation of conjugates that was very sensitive to the number of bound strands. So they have done this experiment with the different proportions of DNA and gold nanoparticles, and they found that the number and intensity of bands increase with increase in number of DNA equivalents per gold particles. So here in the first lane, only gold particles are applied. In the second lane, the gold particles with one equivalent of DNA are resolved. So we can see their discrete bands at 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the third lane, the gold particles are mixed with the two equivalents of DNA, and you see the intensity is increasing and more number of bands have appeared. Centrifugation and filtration is another separation method which is usually used for not quantitative analysis but for the separation, and this is also important to isolate the nanoparticles from some sample matrix. Now these have been most popular techniques for size separation of various particles. The ultracentrifugation employs centrifugal force of up to 106 G as a separating factor. The ultracentrifugation can be preparative or analytical. In case of analytical ultracentrifugation, the movement of particle in the rotor is recorded on a real-time basis by a UV or refractometer detector, and it is widely used to isolate various biological macromolecules and subcellular structures, in particular in the nanometer region of sizes. The second type of filtration separation method is membrane filtration. Now it can be a microfiltration, ultrafiltration or nanofiltration depending upon the pore size. When it is 100 to 1000 nanometer pore size, we call it a microfiltration. When it is a 1 to 100 nanometer, we call it ultrafiltration. When it is a 0.5 to 1 nanometer, we call it a nanofiltration membrane. Due to ability of the ultra and nano filtration methods to handle large volume of solutions, these are employed to concentrate nanoparticles from substantial amounts of water and liquid foodstuffs where they are present in minor quantities. Tangential filtration and cross filtration techniques are the latest filtration techniques which are designed to overcome some undesirable effects associated with ultra and nano filtration methods. Currently, these are standard methods for the fractionation and pre-concentration of colloidal particles both in laboratory and in industry. Mass spectrometry is another independent method which is used for quantitative as well as qualitative analysis of any analyte. This technique is based on the separation of charged particles of different mass in terms of mass by charge ratio. It is a universal method, means it is applied to all kind of analytes, and it is suitable for high sensitivity studies because it can detect the content up to picograms or picomoles, and also it can give us mass in the to the accuracy of 6 decimal places. Now some variants of this method allow mass spectral fractionation of some charged heavy multimolecular nanoparticles also. The advantages are that no sample preparation is needed. Analyte in liquid or solid biological samples can be used as such, though pre-treatment in the sample of the sample with suitable extraction techniques increases sensitivity and reduces background noise. The most commonly used ionization methods in mass spectrometry include electron spray ionization, matrix assisted laser desorption ionization, we call it MALDI, and inductively coupled plasma ionization. The coupling of a suitable mass detector like the one with the TOF analyzer, it means the time of flight, with a separation technique like liquid chromatography and electrophoresis increases the applicability and sensitivity many folds. So it is showing an application of mass spectrometry in the analysis of particles. So here the Peterson et al. Have investigated the degradation of amoxicillin with nanoparticles in water through mass spectrometry using plus ESI mode. In the control sample, we can see that the amoxicillin was detected as a parentine, whereas in the lower 3 chromatograms are extracted from the sample chromatogram, in which the B1 is the same as for the amoxicillin, whereas the B2 and the lower B2, they are for the impurities or the degradation products which are formed by the nanoparticles from amoxicillin. So they both are having the same molecular mass, same mass spectral pattern, but they are separated in the chromatogram. They are having different transition times. So that is the application of liquid chromatography, and detection of mass by the mass spectrometry. So we have seen the various analytical methods which are available for the quantitative or qualitative analysis of nanoparticles, different types of nanoparticles. Uh, Most of the methods cannot be directly used to examine multi-component, multi-phase, optically non-transparent systems such as foodstuffs. And none of the existing single method is able to provide full information that includes size, shape, distribution, concentration, drug load, etc. about the nanoparticles. So application of a complex multi-component system is limited to a few examples. So most methods are destructive, which precludes the independent verification of their results. So to summarize this module, we say that a battery of sophisticated analytical methods are being used and explored for analysis of varied nanomaterials. While some methods provide concrete information about the physical attributes of nanomaterials, some other methods are reliably used for their quantitative estimations. No single method is available so far that provides a complete qualitative and quantitative data of nanomaterials, and perhaps this will be an over-expectation because each analytical method has a particular working principle. Moreover, the nature of nanomaterials and on the top of it, sample metrics are usually so complex that a single analytical method cannot be used for qualitative and quantitative analysis. Thank you.